The next chapter of the One Punch Man manga continues Tatsumaki's technique, essentially, of uprooting the entirety of the Monster Association headquarters, essentially bringing it from an underground hive into an overground tower. So we're essentially, for the majority of this chapter, focusing on everyone's reactions to what Tatsumaki's doing and her, energy bubbles around everybody, and what may come of one certain hero at least. So Blizzard and the old guys are huddled together in one bubble, and she's like, my sister won't hurt me ever. And then a giant crack. One thing about this chapter is that it is filled with comedy, including like moments like this where she gets pissed off at Tatsumaki for like cracking the thing too close to her, even though she's essentially shielding them from harm. But interestingly, I think it was what was it? Chapter around early 120s, I think it was, when we last saw Child Emperor facing off against the evil natural water back in chapter 123. What would have happened to him if Tatsumaki was not there to shield him and bring him out of that? Like, would we have like a drowned kid inside a freaking liquid monster? How morbid would that be? So thinking back to 123, with all these heroes like having like these S-class heroes that could not be touched before this, finally like having a lot of trouble, like almost to the point where they're gonna die against some of these monsters, like Atomic Samurai versus the multiple dude, and then Pig God against the tooth guy. And then of course Zombie Man, which is what I wanted to get to earlier. Now this, I don't know, what do you guys think of this? Do you think that this takes away any kind of impact that they could have had with overcoming these monsters? I personally think that this is leaving it to a point where these heroes can kind of regroup and say, okay, we've gotten really full of ourselves and too much in our heads and too cocky, so to speak. We need to really actually be careful when we face these guys and not go in, head first thinking we can conquer anything, and this leaves it open in the future to have essentially a rematch with Pig God versus Tooth Dude. But I'm a little bit concerned about Zombie Man because, I'm pretty sure he's gonna live through this. It's freaking Zombie Man, right? But it was funny to me that because the evil dude, what is his name? Hobo Man or something like that? But he was blasting him so much that Zombie Man just doesn't have any clothes left. But it's funny that the transmitter is still intact. And that's a really clever way to kind of say this is how Tatsumaki is tracking all of these guys to be able to shield them all. So Zombie Man might be in big trouble here. Obviously, he's probably going to regenerate from this upheaval of the base. But we go to Saitama, and like a giant ceiling is falling down, and instead of using his hands to catch it and saving them, he just uses his foot. Like, Saitama, that's significantly less fast than just raising your arms and catching it. But I really liked the imagery here with his legs sticking straight out. And I should also mention that I really appreciated Pretty Prisoner's little scene where he's calling this the angel float. But also when we go to Atomic Samurai, when he's getting floated away, the walls are kind of closing in to smash the multiple dude who has become this big amalgamation of himself. And Atomic Samurai slices up his arm so that the walls just and he's gone. But then we go to the main event, and that is Tatsumaki finally just uprooting. And I really appreciate this one page. No characters, it's just atmosphere and showing the effect that this is going to have on the surrounding area, including Saitama's apartment. Man, this guy, he wanted to live on the cheap, but now he doesn't have an apartment left. But then it zooms way out, and we see like the entire neighborhood is just effed. Like, this thing does not exist. It is just a freaking pile of Monster Association Tower. And that really served as a really good build up to the final upheaval, which is just boom. this gloriousness of seeing the roads and the buildings and all the dirt and crap and all of what this city or part of the city used to be just getting upheavaled. And I really appreciate the next shot too, showing it in all of its gloriness from a top perspective so that we can actually see the outerlying effects of all the cracks in the terrain, in the earth itself. And we actually get to see that this place actually looks like it has somewhat of a structure outside of it just being a hive. But following that epicness, we have a nice balance of comedy going back to King and the Kid in this elevator, and they're basically playing the Disneyland Tower of Terror ride here. And comedically, King tries to stop it with a freaking bicycle handbrake. Like that, like how are you gonna have a brake like that in a fucking elevator, you know? So they live through that fall, and I can't tell. Do they land on a bunch of Orochi's guts? Or am I looking at this wrong? But at any rate, they serendipitously run into Genos and are surrounded by Orochi's guts, and Genos is just like, no big deal, and just blasts them all to freaking smithereens. Genos is freaking badass, guys. So essentially, on these last few pages, we have Psycho Orochi facing off against Tatsumaki. They break out of the top of the tower. And boy, oh boy, I didn't stress this enough in the last chapter, but Psycho Orochi is, yeah, buddy. But in all seriousness, this might be my favorite shots of Psycho Orochi, where we see it, in all of its glory, just this like godly looking being. And as I'm reading this, I'm just soaking up the atmosphere and the perspective of the art. It really gives you a good sense of really how high up they are. You feel like you're in the sky with Tatsumaki here. And especially with this shot of her in the foreground and the destruction that she just caused in the background of the ground, you really feel like you're actually up there with her. And I really love this shot of Psycho Orochi. It gives you an awesome sense of the scale of how insane, like this is a fucking awesome design, guys. This is straight out of freaking Final Fantasy, like top tier Final Fantasy designs, I would say. But in terms of Psycho Orochi's design, I really, it's kind of kooky, but I love how she just kept her glasses on this whole time while keeping this completely different form. So that is the cliffhanger of this part of the chapter. So what did you guys think? I really enjoyed it for the most part. I liked focusing on the other heroes finally after however many chapters and seeing where they were at. Basically, we were left off with cliffhangers with them, but they were essentially saved by Tatsumaki. So I guess that's all. That ties up all of my thoughts on the chapter. Drop your thought waves down in the comments below. And as always, thank you very much for watching and take it easy.